Yeah, a couple of humdingers. Certainly at Villa Park was the first one.
Wow.
Arsenal toe-to-toe with Villa.
Absolutely. What a great game, actually, to kick things off for this footballing weekend. And when you consider that twice Villa took the lead, and you're thinking, oh, here we go, the wheels have come off now for Arsenal after that midweek defeat to Manchester City, and you're all thinking, how do they come back from that? Even though we were still talking positively about them because we knew they still had a game in hand over City. They still have to play City at City. So much still to play for as well. But to come back like they did, to win 4-2, to reclaim top spot, fantastic, really. A great response and a great resolve from Arsenal.
Well, the one thing I felt after watching the game yesterday is that you're not going to win the title doing that. Going toe-to-toe with the opposition. You're not going to win it. You can't win the title by...
I'm trying to speak positively, and you just switched it.
Well, no, the positive thing is that you've got to convince your players that we might have to win games 1-0. And yesterday was 2 toe-to-toe. Could have gone either way. And I think Arsenal need to be really careful about doing that. I always admired the year that Leicester won the title is they did it in 2 ways in one season where they went toe-to-toe early on and then they went quite cautious and didn't give much away. I think they had 5 1-0s in the second part of the season and they got over the line. I think Arsenal need to get over the line if they're going to win the title. I think going toe-to-toe, they're going to pay a heavy price.
Right. Well, but...
And look, it worked yesterday.
I was about to say, it panned out because Man City dropped points at Nottingham Forest in a game where... they'll be thinking, how on earth did we not win that with all the chances that they created? And Forest, scored with their shot on target in the game.
Yeah. Well, that's not going to happen very often. City will be very clinical. And when you see Erling Haaland miss the chance he had and he's converted nearly everything this year, that's not going to happen very often. But Arsenal have got in that sort of mindset now of going toe-to-toe with teams. And I think that's a bit dangerous for them. They're a better side than that. They can win games with keeping a clean sheet because they did it earlier on in the season. And I think that's the one thing I felt, that's alarm bells for me in some ways with Arsenal, winning that game the manner they did, because it honestly could have gone either way now. If you could have predicted that game after 80 minutes where it was going and ended up Arsenal winning 4-2, you're an absolute genius, because I thought it was one of them. Villa could have snatched it as well. It really could have.
We should talk a little about what happened at Stamford Bridge. Cass.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned it before when we were talking and looking ahead to the games to come yesterday, and sort of alluded to, look, Chelsea are 1 game away from a huge problem. And not many would have necessarily predicted that Southampton would have won at Chelsea, but that's exactly what they did. James Ward-Prowse scoring the only goal in the game from a trademark free kick of his, and it means now he's just, I think, 1 away, is it, from equaling David Beckham's Premier League record of free kicks scored, which is quite incredible. I think I was reading a stat, and forgive me if I've got this a little bit wrong, I think since 2016, something like that, only Lionel Messi has scored more free kicks than James Ward-Prowse.
He's good at them.
Yeah, he's pretty special when it comes to those set pieces for Southampton. And sadly for Southampton, it doesn't move them from the bottom of the table because other results also kind of went against them. But it does mean that they have moved to 3 points from safety. But all the focus naturally will be on Chelsea. There were boos at full time. Like I say, you said that they're a game away from a massive problem. And that's what we saw yesterday. And we're still scratching our heads as to what is going wrong at Chelsea.
Well, if you look at it over the last few months, is it a coincidence that Chelsea couldn't score? Well, that's been obvious for ages, that whoever they play, whoever he selects, what formation he plays, is not really delivering. That's the problem. It's quite weird that, because one of my sons, William, who lives in Paris, but he's a big Chelsea fan, and I was saying to him, because he always phones me about Chelsea, because he watches the games out there, and he's like, always. I got him some kits, and they've got a beautiful kit. They've got Chelsea's kits are really nice. They're away kit.
So, there's the positive.
And I said to him about I said, they look fantastic. They're the catwalk team. They look fantastic, but deliver nothing. That's what Chelsea have become, the catwalk team. Graham Potter, under the previous owner, Roman, he'd been sacked 3 times already. On what's happened. Now, don't get me wrong. I really always consider. I've never done management, and I always think about how tough jobs are. And Chelsea is a massive job in world football, has become even bigger in recent years because of the money they spend, how the structure of the club's been built, the money that's been paid for this football club by the owners. There is no way on earth that he can survive, even if they think and keep saying it's a long-term project. It won't. Things change really quickly in football. And unfortunately, Graham's got into a situation with his team. None of it is convincing. Everything that happened is like Groundhog Day again. Well, it's, the same happened in Dortmund. And 1 goal in 5 games. That's... for a team that have invested so much and have so much talent out, you've got to get the best out of them. And he made changes, and he said yesterday, I had to make changes. He did. He had Dortmund. He's had 3 games in a week. He had West Ham away. He's had Dortmund in the Champions League. And he's had, obviously, Southampton at home, who are a team who are bottom. And then you have the disastrous result. Then the boos are ringing around the stadium. Then you have phone-ins on the radio. And then you have newspaper columns of how much has gone wrong at Chelsea. Because he's been given a huge benefit of the doubt, because there'll be many clubs now, even lower down the pecking order than Chelsea, would have sacked Graham Potter by now.
Yeah, things not quite going to plan then for Chelsea, certainly. Maybe a little upturn in form for Liverpool, would you say? Although they had Alisson to thank for parts of that game at Newcastle, but that was an eventful 20-25 minutes, wasn't it, at St James's Park, as Liverpool went into a 2-0 lead in that game, and then Nick Pope was sent off. We will analyse that game in a little bit more detail later on in this hour. Special mention for a team that is unbeaten in 11, Kaz. Goodness.
You just got over the line.
Well, indeed we did. In fact, it was pretty much the last kick of the game. In fact, it was. Brentford drawing with Crystal Palace 1-1 in the end. There's just something about Brentford and Crystal Palace. We just seem to cancel each other out. 4 times, obviously, we've played them in the league now in 2 seasons, and they've been draws every time. And I must say, very quickly on the game, it was, especially the first half, probably one of the most awful games, really patchy. No one could really get a hold of the ball. Both teams were losing it really quickly. You know when balls are like up in the air and you're seeing players go to head for it, and it just floats over them. It was that kind of game. It was just no one could get a grip on it. And actually it took until Palace scored, I think, for Brentford to actually up their game and eventually score the equaliser like they did in the 96th minute. So, it was a bizarre game, but not the most exciting. So, as a neutral, it wouldn't have been one to tune in for.
Where do you think Palace fans are with their team?
I think
it's a mixed bag, isn't it?
It is.
Because they're still close to just above the relegation zone, really. Yeah. They're not...
They're 6 points.
They're not safe.
They're not safe. They're 6 points. And I say that, West Ham have a game in hand over them. It's funny because they're in 12th, so you think, 12th's pretty secure, it's all right. But, yeah, it's only 6 points. They haven't won yet in 2023. They'll be disappointed. Of course, they'll be massively disappointed that they conceded
get the game over the line.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we're talking pretty much seconds for them to hold on. But the problem was we were so effective down the right-hand side after we'd conceded that goal by Eze, and yet they didn't seem to plug that side. So they kept... You felt like... From a Brentford perspective, that's where we were going to score from. That's where we were going to get the cross in from, which Brian Mbeumo delivered a perfect ball for Vitaly Janelt to head in. But you felt like, why are they not seeing that is our outlet? That is where we are trying to create things from. And they just didn't seem to, close us down in that particular area. I must say, Joachim Andersen, I thought was fabulous. Brilliant. Yep. And I've always appreciated him. I've always thought he was a classy player, but he was superb alongside Mark Guehi as well. I thought they were a great central partnership. But like I say, spoils were shared. 11 games unbeaten, Kath.
Yeah,
it's pretty impressive, isn't it, for a little old team?
The Sunday Sports Breakfast with Natalie, Sawyer and Tony Cascarino. Sunday mornings from 6 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.